Friends, welcome to Coordinate, and today we are introducing a new course which will of course allow us to understand more and more content inside our courses of Coordinate. And the course that we are introducing today is called PHP as an entire course. Many people might ask, hey, what's PHP? Well, the acronyms PHP actually stand for Hypertext Preprocessor. Hypertext Preprocessor. Definitely you are also on Coordinate Easy Programming. Please don't forget to subscribe. Now with PHP, of course, it is a web-based programming language, and it is kind of a programming language that allows us to also work with files like HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, including PHP codes. And PHP is executed on a web server. Hence, for we to proceed in our entire course of PHP, we will need to install our local servers on our machines. Whether you are using Windows or Linux, Mac, we will install a very respective server that you will be using to do the execution of the PHP code. And as we proceed again, we will also install an IDE where we will be doing the coding and anything related to PHP. So PHP as an entire course, please be ready, share so that your friends can also join us. And again, people might start asking, hey, why should I learn PHP? Okay, what is the powerfulness of PHP? PHP, of course, it allows us to create dynamic web pages. If you have, of course, an idea of what HTML and CSS is, you can tell that HTML and CSS allows us only to create not dynamic web pages but static web pages. But with PHP, we can definitely create dynamic web pages that might of course seem like automated web pages with respect to the dynamic life of internet. So we'll understand more when it comes to PHP and how this can be done. Another powerfulness of PHP is that PHP can be used to create, read, write, and of course edit any file that is on any server. And it is by now one of the very popular programming languages which is highly supportive in many web servers that are available today. For example, we have Apache as a web server. And it is definitely one of the programming languages that are highly supportive to such technologies. So what will we learn now inside our PHP as our entire course? Well, definitely here we are having our introduction, and like I said at start, we install a web server, a local based web server where we will be executing our code in our next session. And of course we'll also install the second software, which is an IDE that we will be using for we to work out and do the execution of PHP as a programming language. After that, we'll also understand the syntax of PHP and how we can implement comments in PHP. We'll understand what comments are and why they are vital and needful for a programmer to know them and to understand how they actually work. From there, we'll also proceed and understand what PHP variables are. What are variables when it comes to a PHP? How can we declare a variable? How can we initialize a variable, such content? A variable, like always in any programming language, we say it's more like a container that we hold on to something. After understanding the variables, we'll understand what echo and print is when it comes to PHP. We'll also see the difference between the two terms echo and print. Then from there, we'll understand what data types are and the available data types that we can work with inside PHP as the entire course. Specifically, what a string is in PHP. We'll know what strings are and how we can of course work with the strings in PHP. From there, we'll understand numbers. Numbers, in other words, of course many call them integers. We'll understand what are numbers, how can we work with decimal numbers and whole numbers inside PHP as a programming language, a web-based programming language, which means hypertext preprocessor. From there, we'll also see what operators are. How can we work with different operators in PHP? Is it the logical operators? Is it the arithmetic operators? Definitely we'll understand them. If else or else if statements, what are they in PHP? Hence conditional statements like if else statements, else if statements. or understand them in PHP. From there, we'll of course proceed to another type of a conditional statement, a switch statement. We'll understand what it is. Loops, for loops, of course, while loops, do while loops. What are they and how can we work with them in PHP? Don't worry if you don't understand any of this content, because this is why we are preparing this entire course of PHP here on CodeNet. Functions in PHP. What are functions? How can we work with functions? We'll understand them and we'll see how we can simplify the functions so that even the person who's just a beginner to programming, to PHP, can understand how he or she can work with the functions of PHP. From there, we'll proceed to the arrays. What are arrays and how can we declare a multi-dimensional array? Of course, a single or a singly type of an array and any type of an array when it comes to PHP. Super global variables, what are they and how can we work with them? Definitely we'll see and we'll understand more when it comes to the super global variables. From there, we'll proceed and have 4 sessions where we'll understand how PHP can work with forms. If you want to get content from the end user, how can we work with that? We'll have 4 sessions based on one topic, which is forms, and definitely we'll enjoy, because by this time we'll be ready to do more and more things when it comes to PHP. From there, we'll understand the advanced level of PHP. How can PHP be worked on an advanced level? All these sessions will prepare our mindsets to see what PHP is. How can we now work with PHP when it comes to the database? How can we create the database? How can we delete? How can we modify? How can we add content inside the database? How can we create tables, relations like we were learning from database management systems? PHP will allow us to work and to see how we can do and work with all these themes, and of course do the practical approach to them as we proceed in our entire course of PHP. Please don't forget to subscribe, and let's proceed on our next session as we install the 2 necessary softwares that are needed for we to proceed and to work with PHP. The very first software to install, of course, the local web server, and after that we'll install an IDE. Let's proceed, and please don't forget to subscribe wherever you are on CodeNet.